RBG. So our last conversation, we ended with mention of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her passing. And I stated that if you did not know who she was or you were not familiar with her legacy, that it wasn't too late for you to learn about her. So real talk, let's take a walk down RBG Lane. Now, there's a lot in the news right now, especially about who's going to replace her on the bench and just how soon that's all going to take place. There's a lot of chatter about who that might be, which brings us back to voting. There's also a lot of talk about her family life, her extraordinary career, and the amazing legacy that she leaves behind. I'd like to talk about just who this remarkable woman was who held a seat on the highest court in the land for more than 27 years. Only the second woman to hold this honor, because first there was Sandra Day O'Connor, who, for those of us who are historians, she was actually the 23rd Chancellor of the College of William and Mary, right here in Williamsburg, Virginia. But getting back to RBG, and also keeping in line with the importance of, while we're voting, Justice Ginsburg, also referred to as the notorious RBG, that's why I keep saying RBG. I know it sounds eerily similar to BIG, Notorious BIG. So in her own remarks, she was very big. But she served as an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court from 1993 until her passing just this Friday. And at one time, she was actually the only female justice on the bench. Now, I like to bring attention to the fact that despite graduating first in her class at Columbia Law School, finding employment was not easy for her after college. So she would end up spending most of her career as an advocate for gender equality and fighting for women's rights. That was something that was very close to her, very personal, very important. And how many of you have ever heard the saying, you don't know what you don't know? I say that to come before something that a lot of us weren't aware of. And I'm pretty sure, because I just learned this myself, but I'm sure you didn't know that prior to her going to law school, she worked for the Social Security Administration. Now, the crazy thing about that is she actually ended up getting demoted from her position after she had her first child. So you go on to graduate from college, you're doing so great, you get out, you're ready to start a job, you get a good job, or not the one you want, but it'll do for now, and then only to start your family and be demoted. Let's just think of that for a moment. Now, after having her first child, she eventually went on to law school. I'm guessing, if I can't have it this way, I'll try a different way. And it's said that while she was in law school at Harvard, she was asked, alongside with 8 of her female peers, because it was 9 of them that were in law school at that time in this program. And she was asked by the dean, now, just not any old person, but the dean of the school, asked her and her peers, why are you here at Harvard Law School, taking the place of a man? I'll let that marinate for a moment. Now, that was in 1956, but can you imagine the dean of your college asking you why you're there in place of someone just because of the opposite sex? Can you imagine your employer on your job saying, why are you here? Or anyone for that matter, as if you don't deserve the place that you've earned. So I say to you again, why is voting important? Voting is what changed women's right to vote, 19th Amendment. Equal pay right. The ability to get certain jobs. Even after she graduated from law school, at the top of her class, might I add, she was still paid less than her male colleagues as a law professor. She went on to be a law professor at Rutgers University, and that's in New Jersey, for those of us who are into the geographic locations. And she was paid less. The reason that they said she was paid less was because her husband earned a decent salary, that they thought it was okay to pay her less. Now, I'll let you marinate on that one for a little bit. Can you imagine? Because I know I can't. You know, my husband has a good job and he makes a decent salary and we're comfortable. But I can't imagine going to apply for a job that I know I'm qualified for, a job that I know I can do. And the response is, we're going to pay you less because your other half makes decent money. Something about that just doesn't even sound right. But equal pay. Justice Ginsburg fought for equal pay. With all the challenges, she moved with perseverance, focusing on women's rights, equality. In 1972, she co-founded the Women's Rights Project at the ACLU, and she ran that until 1980. She went on to make significant legal advances for women under the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution. We can thank her for a lot of progress and movement when it comes to equal pay and rights for women. Notably now, she was inducted into the Hall of Fame. She was one of the 100 most powerful women. She was Glamour Woman of the Year in 2012. In 2015, the Times reported her as one of the most 100 influential people. Now, I have some influence amongst my group, my peers, my colleagues, my family, but to be in the top 100, how significant. Now, a lot of what I'm presenting to you or introducing to some, presenting to others can be found in her documentary. The documentary RBG that explores how her early legal battles changed the world for women. The title of it is RBG. And she's known to have said, you can have it all, but you just can't have it at the same time. One of her law clerks mentioned that, and it sounds so profound. She taught people how to be civil. She taught them how to disagree, how to argue and be opinionated. And she had this humor about her that says sometimes, you know, it's just good to be tone deaf. So I asked, you know, like, well, what does it mean to be tone deaf? Definition of tone deaf is when you're unable to perceive differences accurately. Well, that doesn't mean I don't hear you. So Justice Ginsburg said it's sometimes it's good to be tone deaf. We've got differences, but I hear you. She was kind. She was strong. She had excellent work ethic. They make mention about how there were times she'd be at the Supreme Court working well into the midnight hours, and her husband would have to come and get her and say, "Okay, Ruth, it's time to come home now." And she was always, you know, trying to do more. She was an icon among left-wing America. She promoted women's rights throughout her entire life. People would sit out and wait to hear her opinions on the Supreme Court. Literally, just sitting to wait to see what she had to say, you know, what her dissension was going to be. She was an unparalleled champion of voting rights. Voting right advocates have truly lost a relentless ally with her passing. But she left behind the inspiration and direction to continue the fight. It's now on us, we the people, to complete the task. You know, one more reason for you to get out and vote and why voting is important. You know, over the next couple of days, Justice Ginsburg will lie in state at the U.S. Capitol as the first woman in history to do that. Once again, breaking barriers, she's the first woman in history to lie in repose at the Supreme Court, to have this honor. And as I watched her hearse pull up during the memorial, I was in awe that she had 2 female pallbearers. Where have you seen that happen before? I know at least I haven't seen it. It was amazing to see just alone the diversity. But then again, like I said, to see 2 women pallbearers. We'll be talking about RBG for a very long time. Whether it's about her family life, whether it's about her work ethic, whether it's about, as we see happening now, the chit chat about who's going to replace her, I really don't think she can be replaced. How can you? She had an opinion about just about everything. Abortion, not requiring or admitting privileges for abortionists. That's just in 2019. She had an opinion about the budget and the economy. She had opinions about civil rights, fighting for women to be involved in all decisions, not denying the right to marriage for all genders, supporting Obamacare, laws to protect women. She dabbled in corporations. She's saying, okay, it was okay to sue for corporate direct or indirect negligence back in 2011. In 2009, she chimed in on crime. Government is responsible for abuses in private prisons. No death penalty without considering mitigating evidence. That was in 2000. Life sentences should be an alternative to affect death sentences. She had an opinion about drugs. No roadblocks with drug sniffing dogs. Sounds minor and humorous, but she had an opinion about that too. Education. Paying taxes sufficient to oppose religious tax credits. Energy and oil. She said greenhouse gas policy should be decided by the EPA, not the courts. The environment. Congress, not the EPA, determines when cost benefits applies, and it's okay to sue polluters for past pollution. Families and children. She overturned DOMA, voted to overturn DOMA. Let me rephrase that. Equal protection for same-sex couples. Foreign policy. Free trade. Government reform. She said the Voting Rights Act still needed to prevent discrimination. A voice to every voter. Gun control. Healthcare. Homeland security. Immigration. Jobs. Principles and values, Social Security, tax reform, technology, you name it. Justice Ginsburg had an opinion about it. So I say to you, for someone who spent so much time advocating for voting rights and voting on all of these issues that are important to all of us, why is voting important? It's important because it changes things. It's important because it matters. It's important because it's your right. Let's get out and vote.